as we go into a moment of reflection this morning, I want to speak to us for a few minutes about the inconvenience of Christmas. The inconvenience of Christmas. And that may sound like a very strange topic, the inconvenience of Christmas. And no, I'm not talking about the traffic or the long lines or the crowds. But I want to take us all the way back to the very first Christmas. And the first inconvenience of the first Christmas was a young engaged Mary looking forward to marriage. And what happened? Wow, out of the blue, she's told that she would be carrying the Christ child. No, this is not a part of her life's plan or her script. This is not the direction that when she thought about her life, I'm sure this is not what she had in mind, because the plan was to get married to Joseph and to build a family there. So the first inconvenience, Mary, young and pregnant with the Christ child, not a part of her plan. Second inconvenience, Joseph planning his family, probably making furniture for the house that they would eventually live in or wherever they would live, only to be told that his fiancée was pregnant. And not only was she pregnant, but this child was not his child. And in Jamaica, we'd call it a jacket. Isn't that inconvenient? Does it get any more inconvenient than that? Third inconvenience, not only were they expecting a child or this child to come into the world, but they had to uproot themselves and to move to a whole different community, a whole different town. This was not a part of their plan. So it got very inconvenient. This Christmas was not jolly as we know of it now, because things were not going as these persons had planned. So Mary, unexpected pregnancy, and we will see that in St. Matthew 1:18 and St. Luke 1 verse 31. Joseph preparing, but his own plans took a second place and took the back seat to what God had in store. Luke 2:1, they had to move because Caesar Augustus had said that everybody had to go back to their own land. As Jamaicans would say, fowl have to find them roosts. Everybody had to find their homes. Where you're coming from, you had to go back there. So I want us to focus on two words this morning. In spite of all those inconveniences, I want us to focus on two words. And the first word that I want us to focus on is obedience. In every instance that I mentioned before, obedience had to play a very important role. Mary had to be willing to take on the task of bearing the Christ child. Although she was told that she would bear a son, if she decided, Lord, I don't want to do it, the Lord doesn't force his will on anyone. She was at a place where she was ready and she was obedient, and she said, yes, Lord, yes. And if you look into St. Luke 1, you will see a song, the song of Mary, the song of praise and thanksgiving that Mary sang. She had to be obedient to take on the role that God had for her in this Christmas story. Secondly, Joseph had to be also obedient. He was told, do not put away Mary. You still go ahead and marry her, because that child is the child of promise. That child is the Savior of the world. So Joseph had to be obedient. Thirdly, they both had to be obedient. They uprooted themselves and they had to move to Bethlehem, where they eventually settled and gave birth to baby Jesus. Obedience. The second word that I will focus on this morning is alignment. Obedience leads to alignment. We have to be obedient in order to be aligned with the promise and the purpose of God. So let us go back to where this promise started, as was prophesied by the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 7 verse 14. A virgin shall bear a son, his name shall be Emmanuel, which means God with us. Right? Jesus was prophesied to be born of a virgin. So Mary was that selected person. So if Mary was not obedient to that call that she got from the Lord and that plan, she would not be in alignment with the plan, the ultimate plan that God had, where he said a virgin would bring forth a son and he would be called Emmanuel. Secondly, Joseph had to be obedient in order to be aligned, because Jesus was to be born out of the lineage of David. And if we look in St. Matthew 1, we will see the genealogy of Jesus. And we see where Joseph actually came out of the lineage of David. And so that is the part of Joseph in the whole story. But again, if he was disobedient, he would not be in alignment with the purpose and the prophecy that God had placed, that had given so many years before. Micah 5 verse 2 says, "But you, O Bethlehem, Ephrathah, are only a small village among all the people of Judah, yet a ruler of Israel, whose origins are in the distant past, will come from you on my behalf." So here we see, you, O Bethlehem, small Bethlehem, was the town where the Christ child should have been born. And this was foretold so many years ago, way back from the prophet Micah. And so if they had decided that, no man, we're going to stay where we are, we are not going to move, we're not going to go back to Bethlehem because it is too inconvenient, it's going to take too much out of us, we're going to have to uproot, we didn't plan for this, this was no, and that, and they would not have been in alignment with the purpose and in order to fulfill the prophecy that God had given so many years ago. So at the risk of sounding like a broken record, and we have said this so many times, and so many persons have said it in so many ways, 2020 is a very inconvenient year. A very inconvenient year. Needless to say, we have been shifted and we have turned and things have changed. And there are so many things that have gone wrong. Or as we may look at it from one perspective, they may have gone wrong. But I encourage us all this morning, just as how Joseph was obedient, just as how Mary was obedient, I encourage us all this morning to be obedient to the will and purpose of God. Because even though things seem like they are out of alignment and they are in chaos and they are shifting and they are all over the place, let us know that when we are obedient and when we walk according to the will and the purpose that God has for each and every one of us, we will then find the alignment. Joseph and Mary could have sat in their place because it is too much to move. They could have said, no, I'm not going to do this. Joseph could have said, no, I'm not going to do this. This is not my child. There are so many things that have challenged us. And we have thought, why? Why is this? How is this? How am I going to do this? But let us realize, the more that we become obedient to the will and the purpose and the voice of the Lord, the more that we listen to what the Lord is saying to us and he wants to do in our lives, the more we will find that things will slowly fall in place and get aligned to the will of his will and his purpose for us. Obedience is very important for our alignment. And as we celebrate this season, I encourage everyone to take heart and to remember that even when everything seems out of control and in turmoil, God is still in control. When it seems inconvenient, when it seems as if we cannot make it, be obedient to the will and to the voice of the Lord, because what he is doing is aligning you to the purpose that he has for your life. Everything, Even Caesar Augustus, the ruler, who made a decree that everybody should go back to their places of birth, even this ruler, this earthly ruler, was in alignment with the purpose that God had in store. Needless to say, a lot of things are happening, but let us be open, to our minds and our hearts be open to what the Lord is doing and what He is going to do in our lives, because yes, He is still in control.